Today in this video I am going to explain you about circulatory system. In circulatory system I shall deal with few topics like blood vessels like arteries, veins and capillaries, and heart, and also about the differences between arteries and veins. Plasma. Plasma is a straw-colored fluid part of the blood. It is sticky and slightly heavier than water. It forms 55 to 58% of total blood. Lymph. Lymph is also called extracellular fluid and it flows only in one direction from tissues to heart. It returns proteins and fluid from circulation to tissues. It also carries digested fat. Blood. The red colored fluid that flows in vessels and is responsible for the transportation of different useful and harmful substances. Functions. What are the functions of plasma, lymph and blood? The functions of plasma is to carry water, salts and enzymes. It makes nutrients, hormones, proteins to the parts of the body that needs it. Lymph. It acts as a middleman and helps in the exchange of various materials between blood and blood tissues. Blood. It carries oxygen from the lungs to different parts of the body and removes carbon dioxide from the body cells. It carries digested food from intestine to all parts of the body. What is the composition of blood? Composition of blood. Composition of blood. The blood divides into two, plasma and formed elements. Plasma consists of amino acids, nitrogenous waste, nutrients, erythrocytes, proteins, gases. Protein has albumins, fibrinogen and globulins, and formed elements has platelets, leukocytes, erythrocytes. Leukocytes divides into two, granulocytes and agranulocytes. Granulocytes divides into three, neutrophil, basophil and eosinophil. Agranulocytes divides into two, lymphocytes and monocytes. Now, if we keep blood in a test tube and leave it for some time, after some time we can see a straw-colored fluid that floats above the blood, that it floats above the RBC, that is plasma. And just below this plasma is WBC. And below WBC, RBC settles down at the bottom of the test tube. Now, the plasma consists of water, ions, proteins, nutrients, wastes and gases, whereas red blood cells or blood consists of red blood cells, blood platelets and white blood cells. Okay. Now, what are the formed elements? What are the formed elements? The formed elements are red blood cells, that is known as erythrocytes, white blood cells known as leukocytes, and blood platelets known as thrombocytes. And these formed elements are shaped structure visible under microscope are cells, and it is cell-like structure present in the blood. And you can see the difference between RBC and WBC. RBC is disc-shaped, whereas WBC is irregular shaped and has bean-shaped nucleus. Now, next topic is about WBC. I shall explain you about different types of WBC. Here you can see different types of white blood cells. White blood cells divides into granulocytes and agranulocytes. Agranulocytes has neutrophil, basophil and eosinophils. Neutrophils has 2 to 6 lobes of nucleus. Basophils, here it is basophil. Basophil has bilobed or irregular shaped nucleus. Okay, basophil, bilobed or irregular shaped nucleus, and eosinophil is bilobed. And then we come to agranulocytes. Agranulocytes has monocytes and lymphocytes. Monocyte is horseshoe shaped and lymphocyte has round nucleus. Why mature RBC do not have nucleus? The mature RBC do not have nucleus so as to increase the space for hemoglobin and also for oxygen. What is diapedesis? WBC show amoeboid movements which helps to squeeze out of capillaries into tissues, and the process is known as diapedesis. Name the 3 types of blood vessels and write the functions of each. The 3 types of blood vessels are as follows. Artery. Arteries are vessels which carry blood away from the heart. All arteries except pulmonary arteries carry pure blood. Veins. Veins bring blood back to the heart. All veins except pulmonary veins carry impure blood. Capillaries. The capillaries keep our tissues in a healthy state. Leukocytes squeeze out of this thin capillary wall and come to lie in the tissue fluid, which is also known as lymph. Now, here we can see the difference between artery and veins. Can you see the difference between artery and veins? Artery has small lumen and thick wall, whereas vein has broad lumen and thin wall. Okay, now the picture of capillaries you can see here. Artery divides into arterioles, and this arterioles again divide into a capillaries, and this capillaries joins to form vanules, and then again vanules join to form a veins. Explain heart. The human heart is about the size of the clenched fist. Clenched fist. It is a muscular organ that rhythmically contracts to force the blood around the body of an organism. The circulation of blood is initiated by the heart, which lies in between the lungs and slightly towards the left side. It is enclosed in a double membrane called pericardium. It is formed of 4 chambers. The 2 anterior chambers which receive blood are the auricles, and the 2 posterior distributing chambers are the ventricles. This is the picture of the heart. This is superior vena cava, inferior vena cava. Then this is tricuspid valve, bicuspid valve or mitral valve. This one is aortic semilunar valve. This one is pulmonary valve, left auricle, left ventricle, right auricle, right ventricle. This one is superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, pulmonary vein, pulmonary artery. These are the different parts of the heart. Now, the name of the different valves in the heart. Right auriculoventricular valve is also known as tricuspid valve, is found between the right auricle and right ventricle. Left auriculoventricular valve, also known as mitral or bicuspid valve. It is located between left auricle and left ventricle. Pulmonary semilunar valve. It is located at the opening of the pulmonary artery. Aortic semilunar valve. It is located at the opening of aorta. Then define heartbeat, pacemaker and pulse. Heartbeat, diastole and systole produce an unmistakable two-tone sound which is easily heard through an instrument known as stethoscope. This sound is the heartbeat. Pacemaker, the machine takes the place of the specialized muscle cells that initiate heartbeat and which in the patient have stopped functioning. Thus, the beating of the heart is controlled by the pacemaker, also called sinoatrial node, which in group of spatial nerve cell in the right atrium. Pulse. The pulse is a wave of contraction transmitted along the arteries. Now name the tissues which help the valves to anchor to the walls of ventricles, that is chordae tendineae. Name the two nodes and its location which helps in muscle contraction. The heart muscle contraction is due to the presence of nodal tissue in two regions of the heart. The sinoatrial node, SA, initiates the heartbeat. The atrioventricular node causes the ventricles to contract. These are the two nodes. What are those? Sinoatrial node and atrioventricular node. Now name the two heart septum. The septum which divides the auricle as well as ventricle. It divides the auricle into left and right auricle and divides the ventricle into left and right ventricles. Septum separates the right and left atria of the heart, is termed as atrial or interatrial septum, and septum that lies between the right and left ventricles of the heart is called the ventricular or interventricular septum. This way, children, in this video I explained you about blood vessels, heart, and also about the differences between artery and veins. In my second video of this chapter only, I shall explain you about working of the heart, blood transfusion and blood groups.